Joining me now from New York, former mayor and Republican presidential candidate Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jake.
Now, you're a former U.S. attorney. If you had been in charge of this investigation into Faisal Shahzad, what would you do differently, if anything?
Well, I would not have given him Miranda warnings after just a couple of hours of questioning. I would have instead declared him an enemy combatant, asked the president to do that, and at the same time, that would have given us the opportunity to question him for a much longer period of time. Whether it works in the case of Shahzad or it doesn't, the reality is the better policy is to give the intelligence agents who are going to question him the maximum amount of time to question him, to check out the credibility of what he's saying. I mean, I don't know yet what the truth is here. We shouldn't. I mean, I think too much has been leaked about this, and the administration has talked too much about it, because the more you talk about it, the more you warn people in the Taliban to go hide somewhere. When I was a prosecutor and associate attorney general, the last thing in the world I wanted to do is to have the other side figure out, the information we had before we had a chance to act on it. So the reality is just to get these guys to tell the truth and then to corroborate how much they're saying, and for them to remember, it's going to take 3, 4, 5 days of questioning. To cut it off after 30 or 40 minutes like they did in Detroit on Christmas Day, or to cut it off after 2 or 3 hours, doesn't make much sense. And if they think they need to change the law, well, my goodness, have some urgency about it and go do it. Don't just think about it.
So you support what the Attorney General Holder had to say about going to Congress and trying to get an updated Miranda warning?
I do. I support it, but I really, at this point, am frustrated by the lack of urgency that is shown about these terrorism matters. I mean, we've had 3 now where we've seen, big breakdowns. Fort Hood, Christmas Day, and now this one. It's about time that we stop thinking about it and we stop studying it. I don't know how often the Attorney General said he was studying things. How about we stop studying and we start doing things, like we change Miranda, like we fix what appears to be a policy of political correctness, in which we missed every signal that related to Major Hassan and promoted him in the military. And here we missed some very big signals that Shahzad was giving us, going back to Pakistan, remaining there for 5 or 6 months, bringing in, I've forgotten exactly how much cash he brought in from Pakistan, but I think it was
something
about
like
$50,000 or $60,000.
I think it was $80,000, but it was several years ago.
Yeah, but that doesn't trigger an alarm even several years ago? So
well,
let's
apparently
go back
it triggered an alarm, and he was
fix these things now instead of talking about it.
Apparently it did trigger alarm. He was put on a Treasury watch list, but I'm not sure what more could have been done after that. Well,
but don't you see a pattern here, Jake? And I'm just not talking about the Obama administration. I'm talking about our entire apparatus that has to be fixed. We missed the signals with the bomber in Detroit. We missed the signals with Major Hassan. We missed the signals here. Maybe we got to say to ourselves, let's go back and fix all this rather than study it to see what we're going to do. We've been at this long enough now to stop studying and start doing things.
I want to talk about the fact that you think that Shahzad should be tried as an enemy combatant. Can you point to any time when a U.S. citizen was interrogated as an enemy combatant as opposed to in the criminal system, where the result of the interrogation was more successful than apparently this interrogation is going? I mean, Attorney General Holder and other law enforcement officials say,
oh, sure,
this is going very well.
Well, yeah, that's okay. I like that. I'm glad it's going very well. And I've administered Miranda warnings probably 1,000 times, and sometimes they work, and the person they work to have the person keep talking. Sometimes the person stops talking. Depends on the reaction of the person. It's the matter of policy that concerns me. This is not a smart thing to do. It doesn't make sense to interrupt a terrorist in the middle of his confessing and talking to you. I think even Attorney General Holder realizes that, which is why he wants to go to Congress and seem to get more time for that. All I'm saying is, okay, do it. What they did in Detroit in giving Major,
Abdul
Muttalib a warning, right, giving him a warning after 30 minutes makes no sense. It makes no sense to do that. So, sure, it may work sometimes, it may not work other times. It's not the best policy to follow. And so far, 2 in a row, we've gotten lucky. So let's not rely on luck. Let's rely on solid policy.
My understanding during the Abdul Muttalib incident is that actually after about 50 minutes, they had to take him to get medical care, and that's why he stopped talking then, because his life was in danger. But be that as it may, I hear the point you're making. I want to ask you a question about, in the trial of Richard Reed in 2003, Judge William Young said to Richard Reed in 2003, "You're not an enemy combatant, you're a terrorist, you're not a soldier anymore. To give you that reference, to call you a soldier, gives you far too much stature. We do not negotiate with terrorists. We hunt them down one by one and bring them to justice." That's a different attitude than the one you're talking about. Some people say that by making somebody like Shahzad, who is certainly less successful than several of the mobsters you put away, who did far more heinous things than Shahzad actually was able to accomplish, but were tried in a criminal court, they say that what you're proposing would elevate somebody like Shahzad.
Well, that's absurd, of course. I mean, you get more rights as a civilian defendant than you do as an enemy combatant. So that's a matter of semantics. Maybe you're giving them more status in terms of semantics, but you're giving them less rights, which is really important. I mean, you look at this whole thing with Senator Lieberman's recommendation that citizenship be revoked, and look at the reluctance of the Attorney General to support that. It shows a sort of sense of, I don't know, not understanding the magnitude of the problem. I mean, why shouldn't we revoke the citizenship of someone who's been designated an agent of a foreign power, or an agent of a terrorist group? Of course we should. Of course we should be able to revoke it. And I'd be happy to test the constitutionality of that. Instead, we have an Attorney General who's studying that also. They're at war with us, and we're spending time studying what rights they have. This doesn't make much sense, Jake. We're worried more about the rights of the terrorists, it seems, or at least pondering that more than we are urgency about actually curing some of these things that will keep us safe and not have us rely on luck, which is how we got through these last two ones.
We only have a little bit more time. I want to just get your reaction to what happened in Utah yesterday. Senator Bob Bennett, conservative Republican, lost his party primary. Are you worried at all that the Republican Party is not only growing more hostile to more liberal to moderate Republicans such as yourself, but also conservative Republicans who are shown to at least shown an ability to work with Democrats?
No, I don't think so. I think the reality is that the Republican Party is very much based on its core principles. I think it's operating from its core principles. And I think that at this point, President Obama has pushed the envelope so far that Republican Party wants to have candidates who are going to be effective in standing up to the administration's inexorable march toward European social democracy. I mean, I see an administration that both in terms of economics and in terms of foreign policy, national security, seems to be moving us in the direction of European social democracy, with government taking over large segments of our economy, from car companies to banks to the energy industry, which they're trying to do, the healthcare industry, regulated in a minute way, the way the social democracies, which largely have failed in Europe, have been doing now for several generations.
All right,
and we need Republicans who are ideologically committed to standing up against that and really moving us in a different direction. I think that's what you see going on with the Tea Party movement. I think that's what you see going on in these elections.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mayor Giuliani. That's all the time we have.
Thank you, Jake. Always nice to talk to you.
Nice talking to you.